I'm pleased to have the opportunity today to introduce today's speakers. First, we're going to hear from Leslie Milder from the Friends of Texas Public Schools. Many of you have probably heard of this nonprofit organization, by the way, that means you can donate, which has one purpose, bringing the good news about Texas public schools to fight and to light. Too often we hear that public schools need to be fixed, not about the good things happening each day at the more than 7,900 campuses statewide. That's what the Friends of Texas Public Schools wants to change. This organization has launched a sustained public relations campaign on behalf of the Texas Public Schools. Joining us today to discuss her group's work is Leslie Milder. Leslie and her husband Scott founded the Friends of Texas Public Schools in 2004. Leslie is a high school teacher in Mesquite ISD and a member of ATPE. We can't leave out the most important part, of course. So please join me in welcoming Leslie Milder.
Wow, good morning. This is so exciting to be at ATPE. Yeah, I've been a member since I started my student teaching because I remember my mother bringing home that form and saying, here, you have to sign up now for ATPE. You will do this every year at the beginning of the year. And I have. All right. Let me see a show of hands. How many of you are just sick and tired of being picked on? I am. I used to come home and complain about it every night to my husband. You know what I'm talking about. You come home, you've taught your heart out all day long, you're exhausted, you think, okay, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to watch some TV while I grade this mountain of papers. And you flip the TV on, and it's public schools are failing, kids are graduating and they can't read, and tax scores are expected to fall, the dropout rate is skyrocketing. The next morning, you get up, you have your coffee, you open the paper, and there's a crisis in education. Tasmanian school children are better in math and science than U.S. kids. And my personal favorite from last spring is that nearly 1 in 10 fail tax. Now, I teach social studies, not math, but couldn't you also say that about 90% of them are passing tax? Now, I don't know about you, but all this negative attention that public schools, they're always saying, they're always spinning the negative, And I take that a little personally, because the bottom line is, if kids are graduating and can't read, and if U.S. kids are not performing as well as their world peers, or if nearly 1 in 10 are failing tax, that must be something I'm doing in the classroom. Because the bottom line is me, you, in that classroom every day with those kids, okay? And we know that's not the truth. We are extremely successful, but that never makes it into the newspapers or onto the evening news. This negativity about our public schools is affecting how we in education see ourselves. It affects how people view the teaching profession, and it affects how parents feel when they put their children in our public schools. My husband Scott and I did that for the first time this year. Our oldest started kindergarten, and that is huge. I'd been on the other side for so many years that having to hand one of your own over, yeah, that's different. Very different. And we want people to feel confident when they're handing over their babies, that they're going to be successful in our public schools. Last year, I was teaching social studies at John Horn High School in Mesquite, and we lost a fantastic social studies teacher at midterm. He was one of those people that walked into the room knowing, how to have a great rapport with kids. And his students adored him. He was a great teacher, and he left to be a fireman. And I asked him, I said, Tommy, why? Why do you want to leave this? You're a natural. The kids love you. And he said, I'm just beaten down. He said, I'm just worn out, and I want to do something that people appreciate. We lost him because he didn't feel appreciated. Not because we weren't paying him enough, which would be nice, but because he didn't feel appreciated. And it's not just teachers. One of the best assistant principals that I ever worked with is now a pharmaceutical rep. And the negative news is affecting our ability to attract and retain quality educators. How many of you went to college to become, and became a teacher because you wanted to be a millionaire? No, okay? Not so much what drives us into this profession, okay? Now, I'm not saying a pay raise wouldn't be nice, but that's not really what keeps us here. The first year I taught, I really thought I knew what it meant to be a public educator. You see, I have literally been around this profession from the cradle, okay? My mother, who's sitting right here in the front row, taught elementary school for 33 years. Yeah. 6th grade. So, my Aunt Jane, her sister, is in her 42nd year. She is an elementary school principal. My mother's other sister, my Aunt Judy, is the director of career and technology in our district. We all teach in the same district. And she and I actually taught on the same campus the first 2 years that I taught. So you talk about a mentor. You just run up and ask Aunt Judy. But I really thought, seriously, since I was a kid, I heard all these, their good stories, their bad stories, their challenges, the successes, and I saw firsthand the long hours and the hard work that went into this profession. And I really thought I knew what to expect. And I really thought I knew the purpose of public education. And, I'd been to college. I knew the lesson cycle. I knew my EEs. That tells you when I started. And I thought I knew what this profession was about. I didn't have a clue, okay? I got in that classroom, and my 4th period government class, the first year that I taught, I had Laura. Laura was twice my size, loud, outspoken, opinionated, kind of affiliated with the local gang. And quite honestly, she scared me to death. I was terrified of her. And the first week or so of school, she ran my classroom because I let her. I was afraid. And finally, about a week or so into school, the bell rang and they were all kind of milling about. And I said, all right, everybody take your seats. She got right up at me, my face, and she says, I'll sit down when I want to, not when you tell me to. I thought, oh, Lord, here we go. So I just kind of got right back up and I said, well, then want to already. And she looked at me and she sat down. I thought, okay. So as the months progressed, I slowly regained control of my classroom from Laura. And I got to know her. She would come by before school or after school or at lunch or whenever and visit with me. And I learned about Laura that she lived with her grandfather because her mother was in prison for selling heroin, that she never knew her father, didn't know who he was, except that he was Hispanic, a fact which her grandfather would throw in her face every day using the most horrible of racial slurs. That when she was with her mother, that she and her sister, to feed her sister, she would steal from convenience stores. She told me she would never again eat canned corn because she would steal canned goods and try to open them, and that's what they would eat cold out of the can. And so I got to see into Laura's personal life and into her background. And it was about Christmas time, and some of the other students in my room were talking about what they had asked for Christmas. And, how I specifically remember one little girl saying that she had asked for a car for Christmas, and her tragically horrible parents were making her get a job so that she could pay the insurance on that car. And just how grossly unfair that was. And Laura, I remember, looks up and says, "What is wrong with you? I've never had a Christmas present, ever." Okay, so you know what I did? Yeah, what y'all would do, you go out and you might get a Christmas present, So I wrapped it, like when I was wrapping all my other Christmas presents, I wrapped hers, and I brought it to school, and I told her, I said, come by and see me before you leave today. So she comes by, And I give her this Christmas present. She won't open it because she's never had anything to unwrap before. So she took it with her, and I said, well, open it on Christmas Day. That way you have something, to look forward to. So the rest of the year goes by, and our classes changed at semester because I teach government, but she would still come by. Every day I would see her. Last day of school, I'm standing outside my classroom as the kids are leaving, making sure that there's no shaving cream or other contraband. And she comes up and she says, I have something for you. So, okay. And she says, I bought you a present. I've never bought anybody a present before. And then she goes on to assure me that she did buy it, that it was not stolen. And she gives me this. I brought it with me today. It's this little glass plate with the Lord's Supper in it. And my husband would recognize this as the cranberry sauce plate from Thanksgiving. I use it every year with my wedding china and my crystal on the Thanksgiving table is this, because it reminds me of what we really do in public education. For Laura, public education was a safe place for her to get up and come to every morning. There was no one screaming racial slurs at her. In fact, we built her confidence. She was not hungry, thanks to our free lunch programs and our free breakfast. And we provided her with a quality education so that she could go out in the workforce and be successful and not make the mistakes of her parents. This is the true success and purpose of Texas Public Schools. And this is what's not being reflected in the media. These are the things that cannot be measured on a bubble sheet. And this is the type of thing that my husband heard me complaining about for the first 6 or 7 years of our marriage, and how frustrating it was to me to hear all the negative all the time, but see all the positive every day. And so finally, Scott's in PR. He was the school public relations person when we met. He now does corporate PR. And finally one day he says, hello, what you have is an image problem, and you really need a good PR campaign. I think a PR campaign? What? For what, teachers, public schools? How does that work? And he points out to me that the American dairy farmers have an entire successful campaign promoting milk, the whole Got Milk ads. There's also a whole campaign to promote cheese. Cheese, people, cheese. All those behold the power of cheese. Okay, try this one. Behold the power of public education. If they can do it, we can do it. This is how we came to create Friends of Texas Public Schools. It's time that we stand up and counteract the negative and celebrate the positives. And my charge to you today is threefold. One, we need to be good about educating ourselves about our profession, the successes and the challenges facing it. And you guys are doing that today because you're here. Okay, you're here to learn and I know last night you had a great speaker on school finance, and I'm the first to admit, I hear the word school finance, my eyes glaze over, my brain turns numb. That's not what I do, okay? But it is, okay? We have to know those things. We have to be educated. And then second is to speak positively about our profession, okay? We have to promote ourselves because no one else is going to do it for us. We need to arm ourselves with positive talking points and talk about them at the grocery store, the baseball games, church, wherever people are talking about what's in the news, okay? We need to know the great things that are happening in our public schools, and we have to share them with the public. And that's one thing that Friends of Texas Public Schools will do for you. If you join today, and on your chairs there was a flyer about Friends of Texas Public Schools. Okay, I've preached. Now I'm going to ask for the money. I would not stand before a group of teachers because there are a few things that I enjoy more than a good teacher discount. So, normally to join Friends, it's $25. Today, if you join, it's $10. You guys are out shaping tomorrow today. You don't need to hunt for the good stuff to share with people, okay? Friends of Texas Public Schools, we will send that to you. You will get a monthly e-newsletter that tells you all the wonderful, successful things that are happening in our public schools so that you can share them with the people in your community. All right, and here's my last one. I'll wrap it up after this, I promise. This is the government teacher. I cannot pass up this opportunity to remind you that we have to vote, okay? We have to vote. We are a huge, potentially powerful group of people. And we saw that, and some incumbents saw that on March 7th. And I'm proud to introduce today someone who beat an incumbent in his district, House District 101. He's sitting right here in the front row. Wave, Thomas Latham. He's also my dad. You know, with Dad running and watching the state elections so closely, I was really excited this time to see a real movement by educators. And I really hope to see it continue. You know, here in Austin sometimes, over a few blocks up, they sometimes call us WASPs, whiny-ass school people. And my husband Scott was talking about this with me the other day, and he said how disrespectful that is, you know, and how could they do that? And I said, you know what, it's all right. I'm all right. You know, call me a wasp. It doesn't bother me because when you mess with a wasp, you get stung. And if you keep messing with us, you're going to stir up a wasp's nest, the likes of which you've never seen before. And, you know, I don't know, losing your House Public Education Committee chairman stings a little bit. So if it takes whining and complaining, yelling, screaming to do what's right for the educators and the public school children of Texas, let's keep it up. Whine all you want. Keep up the great work. Please consider joining our network of friends, and thank you so much for letting me speak to you today. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you.